libraries. We've got Pinterest, Twitter, Facebook. We just started Google+. What I'm most familiar with and work most closely with is our Twitter for the main library, and then our Instagram account. We just got our 108th follower on Instagram today, so that's kind of a big thing for us. And then in terms of platforms that we're looking to use, Localist is an app that the University of Iowa started using, or it's a web application that it's kind of a calendar app, right? So it shows everything that's going on campus. And so that, I guess, is the app that's kind of in our near future that I'm not very familiar with.
Julie?
Hello. So I'm Julie Arnsdorf. I'm at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I just started here in November, so I'm a little bit newer, but this campus seems to use Twitter more than any other social media platform. So we're pretty active on Twitter as well as Facebook. We've been using Instagram a little more aggressively lately to good results. We also have a branch library that's on Tumblr. They take photos of whiteboards around the library and post photos on Tumblr, and it's been very, very popular. We're interested in investigating Vine. We're not quite sure how that would incorporate with our other social media. And then for events, we often post photos on Flickr, and we're also on Pinterest. I should say that we have many branch libraries at UW-Madison and also one campus libraries marketing committee that arranges social media for all of the libraries.
Cool. Paige, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Can you hear me? I just switched to my iPad.
I can hear you.
Hooray! So I'm Paige. I'm the Social Media and Information Literacy Librarian at Avila University. I'm walking back to my office now. Sorry. I've been trapped. If you read the message earlier, I've been trapped at the circulation desk. Right now, if I heard you correctly, you want to know what platforms I'm using. I'm using kind of the main ones. I use Facebook, I use Twitter, and oddly enough, Pinterest is one of our favorites, and the one that we get used the most. All right, I'm actually in my office now. We also have a WordPress, and it doesn't get used very often, and I'm trying Tumblr, and I'm failing miserably. I really am curious about Yik Yak. I don't know, and I'm trying to figure out if Snapchat would be of any use to my library whatsoever. What else would you like to know? I'm kind of it's been a fun little bit trying to figure out where I'm going to go hide. So.
Well, I think there's going to be some good interest in your Pinterest experience.
It's a lot of fun. It's surprisingly popular. It's probably where we get the most. It's not necessarily popular with our students, but we get a lot of repins, which I think is really interesting, and it's always for very strange stuff. So.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah.
Lauren, I know you don't have a mic, but do you want to introduce yourself via text? You are all set and ready to go. That's awesome. All right, so since we're all currently using social media, our first topic that we kind of want to talk about is how do you determine which platforms you use?
So I'm relatively new to my position at the University of Iowa. I just started in January. And I came in and all these social media accounts are already up and running. And so I didn't really have a say in, that decision-making process. But I know that we have an interest group devoted to social media right now. We're in the process of hiring a new strategic communications officer, which will hopefully help coordinate this in the future. But right now, it's just liaisons and myself running everything. So for me, the big question is, since I'm tasked with working with undergraduates, you know, I had to think pretty strategically about what medium to use to reach them. And I know Instagram is kind of where they're at right now. Snapchat, I guess, too, but we don't have Snapchat. So yeah, for me, it's really concentrating, you know, on that area with Instagram. We also have a pretty popular university-wide Instagram account, and so it helps to kind of piggyback on what they're doing, you know, strategically as well. We know that our other accounts, Facebook, Pinterest, we do have a really active Tumblr in our special collections, but that's kind of unique and set apart from the larger library's social media outreach. But we know that most of the other social media accounts tend to be focused on alumni, right, and older patrons. And so for me, Instagram just seems to be where it's at right now. But I'm interested to hear if anyone else has success reaching undergraduates with other platforms.
Oh, someone died.
It's actually been.
Go ahead.
Julie, go ahead.
Oh.
I think your mic cut out.
So yeah, the Tumblr account has been pretty popular with our undergraduates. Our Instagram account is, the number of followers is increasing, but it's still pretty small at this point. But I agree that in terms of the university's postings, they tend to be most followed by alumni, people away from the university. They like connecting with it that way.
We kind of determined what we were going to get into very randomly. It was actually just walking around the building and watching what students, not looking, but kind of watching what students were using. And that's how we got into Facebook primarily at the beginning, was just because we saw our students were using Facebook so much. Then we started to move into Instagram recently because we've noticed none of us have any experience with it. We don't use it in our personal lives, which is why using Facebook was actually kind of easy. But other campus partners, other departments on campus, like the student union, uses Instagram pretty heavily. And looking at their accounts, they actually get a lot of traffic off of their Instagram accounts. And so that's why we set one up, and we started to just kind of roll it out slowly. And we've been slowly building followers thanks to other partners on campus, like the student union, like the university, sharing stuff or tagging the library by name, and that's how we've started to pick up followers. But we've noticed that our traffic on Instagram has been quite more responsive than our traffic on Facebook has been. I can't speak too much about Twitter because that account was created long before I took any control over it, and I don't know how they got the number of followers they did, but we get very little traffic off of Twitter. But on the upside, most of our bribery, exactly. Most of our Instagram people that respond and like our stuff or comment on our stuff have been undergrads. As opposed to on Facebook, where we see that we're getting the views, but most of the likes that we get are from staff or parents, which is another way to think about how we use Facebook is the parent angle.
I think one of the things that I'm most interested with social media is more targeted outreach. So not just reaching out to this very general audience of, oh, well, we'll just send this out to everybody, but figuring out, okay, who exactly are these followers? What are they interested in? And I think that's a huge challenge, identifying, anonymous users online and, trying to expand those populations as well.
Does anybody else on their campus, do other departments or schools use social media?
Yeah. I just run the stuff for the library, but we have a lot of our sports teams and then our student activities and the university as a whole all have Twitter accounts. And then some of them, including our dining hall, have Facebook accounts that they're getting more and more popular. I'm not really sure how they're getting followers because we're having problems getting followers on all of those. And a lot of the people who we get are, like you were saying a little bit ago, are alumni or other staff members from the university, or in some cases my friends and family who have found it and are being nice to me. A lot of my likes come from one of my aunts, which is kind of skewing my stats, but it helps. But yeah, our campus, Avila itself runs, the university as a whole runs, I believe, an Instagram and a Flickr and a Facebook and a Twitter. So.
That's one thing that we've been working a little more here at Northwestern is partnering with and at least talking a lot more with the other people on campus that do social media. So our university relations does a quarterly, they call it a symposium, where pretty much everybody on campus that does social media gets together in one room to kind of just talk about something. Usually there's like a speaker that will talk about something or one focused topic, but the biggest benefit that we've gotten out of it is getting to know the other people that are doing social media personally, like by face and by name. And so we've been thinking about how can we leverage that information to target other users. So, the College of Arts and Sciences, well, if we can, tag their whichever account we're talking about, they use Twitter most often. So if we use our Twitter account to kind of reach their users by talking about things that would be relevant to their users and then tagging them, it's not something we've actually gotten into because that takes a level of preparation that I don't feel like we have had the time yet to do. But it's something to think about.
We've had a couple instances at UW-Whitewater that we were able to have a campus-wide campaign to promote a certain topic. We recently did the It's on Us. There was a video for campus that was sent out, and every social media group on campus all changed their image to the It's on Us. It was a purple with the white text for the entire campus, and that was, we've started to have a communications meeting with all of the marketers for campus that we actually meet about once every 3 weeks, everyone across campus, which is helping give everyone who does promote the university a chance to find out what everyone else is doing and really get a chance to talk and share ideas and bounce things off one another, which has been really nice.
Let's talk a bit about management. Do you have a plan that you follow with your social media program? And if you do, how did you put it together?
I guess I'll jump in again. We put together a social media committee just with library mostly librarians that I work with, and put together a separate document for each of the social media outlets that we have, including just a really general what we're using the account for, how to sign in, including passwords, because we have had that as an issue in the past, that the person who had our Flickr account in the past switched positions and nobody got the password from her, and we weren't able to get back on there to change it. So making sure that the information is documented and making sure it's in place so that if there are any changes, we have a central location with what types of posts we have, what our hashtags are, and basically just a really thorough breakdown of what we use each of the different tools for, and coming back to the committee to meet again for if we decide to add any new social media networks and that sort of thing. So.
Lauren, your plan is mostly Hootsuite. I want to talk about tools and things a little later, but how do you mean your plan is mostly Hootsuite? Mm-hmm. But do you come up with stuff in advance, or are you working kind of on the fly? Are other people working in advance, or are you working kind of like on a day-to-day basis?
I tend to work in advance since social media is such a small part of my role, and it really is, yeah. So like Lorraine said, 1 hour, right, can mean a lot of posts, and so I just have an Evernote document too that just kind of lives on, where I can drop ideas if I have them. So I do the Twitter posting, which is more like news-related events, so that can be easy to kind of drum up that content. But I also do some creative posting on Instagram. So we do Library Shelfie Tuesdays, which is my thing, and so I need to kind of keep creative ideas, right, for those posts going. And so Evernote's just a nice place for me to store that. So, I've got the next 4 weeks or so planned out for that.
Mine's completely on the fly, which is terrible for the most part. I might have a list of what I'm going to be doing for the week because I wear many hats, but social media is a big part of my job, and unfortunately a lot of my stuff is on the fly, just sort of as I see it online, or if it's a holiday, I'll do something, or if our hours change or we have an event or something, I'll just sort of post when the mood seems correct. I don't know.
Anybody else working with a plan?
We sort of do. We have different people around campus that are assigned to each day. So one person will be assigned to Mondays, and another person will be assigned to Tuesdays. And within that, we sometimes have things like your Shelfie Tuesday. We have Throwback Thursday that we do, and it's associated with the university archives and digital collections. Those tend to be actually our most popular posts on Twitter and Instagram.
That seems to be about the same for us too. So we split posting up based on the days and the topics, and similarly the Shelfie posts, and then anything that comes out of our special collections and archives is typically the at least the most liked content.
Lauren, I would say that is a kind of planning. So another question is, how many of you are working with a team or how many of you are flying solo? And if you have a team, how did you put your team together, or how was your team put together if someone else did it for you?
I'm flying solo.
I was flying solo for a while when I first started in the outreach position, but after that we kind of realized that that wasn't sustainable, and we really weren't maximizing, um, because it takes so much effort. We weren't really maximizing our actually ability to reach people, so we decided that it was time to put a team together. So we did. And I put the team together pretty much by talking to our public relations director for the library. Her focus is big picture. She works, alumni donors, and that sort of thing. She also works with the university relations on big publications, but to get her input on it, and then we just kind of put together a team of people that we thought would just be good. People that were active in social media already, so that they kind of would have an idea of what tools to use and how to use them, so they'd be comfortable with it. And then we kind of sat down and we put a plan together as a team, looking at a week worth of stuff and how we might approach a week's worth of content. And we've only just started that about a couple weeks ago, so we're still figuring out how that team is going to work.
As I mentioned,
Go ahead.
we also have campus-wide marketing committee. It's every 2 weeks, so we're able to coordinate our messages, and we have a central wiki document that we all update. So if there's a big event going on at a library, we're able to hear from librarians around campus, and we collectively edit it so we know, okay, on this date we need to start using this hashtag on Twitter. And then the person who is now chairing that group is the director of communications for the libraries. So it's been helpful to have.
Speaking of Wiki, and Lauren mentioned Hootsuite, how are you managing your content? Especially the people, Katie, I think you mentioned that you were working in advance. How are you managing your content? You're posting your content. What tools are you using, or are you using like the native interfaces?
With Instagram, there's no real good way to schedule that I've found.
It's the worst.
Right, and so I just use Evernote, and I type out everything there, and then I just grab it. I've got the app on my phone and just grab it quick and pop it in when I'm doing the Instagram posts. For Twitter, we use Hootsuite, and so yeah, that's what I'm familiar with. But Evernote works well for me since I do have it across my devices.
Anybody else?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
For anyone that's working with Tumblr, is there any good way to queue up Tumblr posts, or is that a native interface kind of clunky arrangement?
I've never used Tumblr, so. Is anyone else using Tumblr?
I've tried and I cannot figure that thing out yet.
How do you manage multiple accounts with multiple people? Oop, that was the wrong question. For us, um, with the 5 of us, the weird thing is figuring out, and it actually took us a while to figure out how do we manage all this stuff, and we ended up creating a few generic Gmail accounts, or one generic Gmail account to link to a bunch of different platforms. So like our Instagram is a generic Gmail that we all log into. Hootsuite, yeah. We use Hootsuite for the library, but that was even difficult too because you could only have one Hootsuite account per one. Your Twitter account can only be attached to one Hootsuite account. Is that correct?
Hootsuite can be associated with multiple Twitter accounts because I know whenever I post, I have to choose which account I want to post from within Hootsuite.
Right, but so you have the Hootsuite account, right? And you've got your library's account attached to that. And someone else has a Hootsuite account that you're working with. They can't, their Hootsuite account cannot have that Twitter account
Oh,
on theirs. So
gotcha.
how are you, if you're working with a bunch of people that are going to be posting, how have you been tackling that problem of people needing to log into the same stuff?
We're all able to log into Hootsuite using the same email account. We share the email address and password, and
Okay,
everyone logs in using the same account.
gotcha. Okay.
I was actually just invited to so I had a Hootsuite account before I started this position and was invited to be able to edit and schedule tweets, and that seemed to work just fine.
Invited by whom?
So the admin who has the Hootsuite account that's linked to our library Twitter.
So they must have some sort of a pro account.
Yeah, exactly. So they have a pro account. So the
Okay.
university has the pro account and can invite.
So Lauren says that you've been doing one account and divvying up days by platforms. Okay. That's kind of how we've been thinking about doing it too, is everybody takes a week with something. What are you all using to share your logins then? We've been using Google Drive.
If I had to share, that's probably what I would use. That's how I share a lot of documents with the library staff in general.
Hmm.
We have a shared calendar. That's how we kind of keep track of where everybody is going to be during the days. So we are all very Google friendly. So.
We have it on a spreadsheet in our library intro web.
Okay.
It's protected that way, but it's pretty clunky. We've also just we probably don't have the best security in terms of our passwords and usernames, so we've made it easy to remember logins.
Well, we did the same thing. We made all of the logins the same.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you figure if anyone wants to hack a library's social media account, they've got.
Good luck. Might get you some traffic, right?
Right. I don't know. Although we have had that happen, we did have it happen actually for an event when we were live tweeting an event in our Learning Commons. That did happen actually, but got it fixed pretty quickly.
So how about coming up with content? How often do you post on what platforms?
That's something that we've actually changed up a little bit. We found that with the changes in Facebook, we just really weren't getting as much visibility there as we had been.
Reach.
Yeah, reach, thank you. So we've kind of transitioned from posting a couple times on Facebook to we usually try and do at least 2 tweets a day and at least 1 Instagram post every day, and just to kind of remember that way. So sort of a change in emphasis from Facebook to Instagram and Twitter, because Twitter is most used on this campus.
Mm-hmm. And I can concur with the Facebook, although I don't know that anybody's surprised, but we saw our visibility, our reach drop in half in the last couple months. Posts that would get, 100+ views now are getting like 50 views.
They switched how photos show up now. So that was pretty disappointing, because I don't think people really want to see a bunch of videos down their Facebook feed. So, I mean, you kind of have to balance like what they want to see, but at the same time, what will show. So you don't want people unliking you just because you're annoying them with a million videos. But I mean, it's a tricky balance.
So what's been your approach to how are you posting, how often, and where?
We kind of split up our social media networks. Just we have kind of a backup system that there's one person in charge of each account. I'm in charge of Facebook, and then there's a backup for the account if I would be out of the office or something. But for Facebook specifically, I try to post maybe once a day. And that has been working just fine. I mean, during breaks in the school semesters and summers, I don't post that often, but it's usually 1, maybe 2. Usually never over 2 a day. So.
And when? That's always been another one of my questions. Is have you found a time that gets maximum reach?
For us, it's usually sorry.
Go ahead.
I said for us, it's usually like our best times are usually between like 10 and 1 or so. We have a lot of classes that are out and the library is full, and they're all just killing time in between classes. So they're on Facebook at that point in time, and that tends to be when we get our biggest pull.
Yeah, I've always heard that nights are really good, but I have not seen very good reach at night. So I generally post probably around 10 or 11 in the morning until maybe 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and that's when I've seen the best reach.
Orange says they try to aim to tweet between classes. I feel like that's a great idea, but our class schedule seems too crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to say, I hadn't even thought about tweeting between class schedules at such a big university. But perhaps, I think, most of the classes are between, 10 and 2 o'clock on Tuesday and Thursday. So maybe thinking about pushing more out, at those times, Tuesday and Thursdays, maybe focusing more of our content to go out after those classes.
That's the nice thing about Hootsuite too, is that it allows you to do an auto schedule so that the post will get the most reach. I've used that in the past as well.
So I guess that makes me think of like the question of how do you come up with content then, especially if you're coming up with stuff in advance. You know, how do you come up with content? How do you generate your content thinking about a schedule? This day in history?
I have those days. A lot of times I have a lot of time to scroll through the internet, so sometimes I'll post things like if it's some famous person's birthday or if somebody died or if it's Pi Day, I'll post stuff for that. Or if there's something fun and maybe vaguely literary happening in Kansas City, that's where I'll find stuff. Occasionally we have a bunch of student workers and they will come to me with ideas, which is much appreciated. And the other staff will come up and tell me they found this thing on Pinterest, and I might go and post that. But it's, for me, content is either coming directly out of my own head, or it is because there's some kind of event happening somewhere in the world that seems important, and from scrolling the internet all day long.
Who posted for Pi Day?
I was at Comic-Con. I missed.
You're forgiven then.
Yeah.
I like to go through usually every day we'll go through all of the, once I sign in as the library, I can see see the news feed with everyone who the library likes, and then I can see, okay, well, these are all the university social media accounts that posted this, or this today, and then either like or share or do different things with their content to help them, but also hopefully get us more users as well and just be active in the network as well.
Lauren, I like your idea about thinking about campus events and linking them to the library. The hockey game is canceled. Borrow Mighty Ducks. That's good. That's a good one. And we've kind of tried to start doing the same thing. One thing we started doing with this group is putting together a calendar and looking at the campus calendar and what's going on around everything whenever that time is, and then try to figure out stuff that we can link to other people, because then that again allows us to tag those people and reach their users as well. What about the idea of coming up with original content versus linking to outside content? Do you do a lot of any of that, either of those, or do you focus on one?
I think here for us, I mean, for me with Instagram, it's mostly original because it's just, you just don't share a lot on Instagram, right?
Right.
But I know that my other team members that do focus on the other social media accounts, Facebook and Twitter and Google Plus, tends to be original content that's linked in some way to campus, the campus event calendar. Lecture committee stuff like that. Although our special collections, which I can't speak a lot about, but our special collections is a pretty strong social media user and quite popular. And I know they do not recycle, but they do link out to other people's content. But I think that works for them because there's a natural audience for their stuff, bibliophiles and antique lovers and antique book lovers, and I just think that there's a lot more content out there versus stuff that I'm doing that's focused on undergraduate stuff and local topics.
Lauren saying outside content be tricky outside the university. And being careful about who you post what and what you retweet. Um, one of the reasons why I'm personally kind of interested in this too is when in one of the most recent social media summits that we did here, they actually talked about the benefits of retweeting or reposting content or linking to content that's trending because it gets you much more traffic, and then how you can kind of relate that to, you know, the libraries, in our case, the library's content. So whether it's like, you know, a popular HuffPo article or something like that. Does anybody else, do you link to stuff like that? Anyone?
I do.
Yeah.
I'll try to. If something big, particularly like if it's a local Kansas City thing, I'll try and maybe write a post or something that involves it, or like the Super Bowl, or like right now the bracket stuff's all coming out. I'm probably going to write a post at some point this week having to deal with March Madness just to try and basically get some more traffic, and I'll do that every now and then. But sometimes, I mean, I have a pretty even mix between outside content and self-created stuff, so.
I'm curious, as someone who's new to this space, you know, I think it's important to get likes and followers, but do we have any sense, like, does anyone have any metrics for determining whether the followers have actually engaged with library resources or activities? You know, like, are social media accounts working in terms of marketing in a more directed way? I know that someone brought up targeted outreach through social media, and so I wonder if anyone has experience with that. Or
We have started to talk about it, and what we did was we set up a Bitly account for the library, and we're starting to use the Bitly URLs in the links that we put to library services on our social media, and we started doing that for not just our social media but our marketing materials as well, and that way you can actually track how many times people have clicked on it. Then if you set them up in that way, you can, you know, a very targeted way, you can actually say, okay, these people are coming from Facebook, these people are coming from, you know, Twitter, these people are coming from, I don't know, do people put links to things in Instagram photos?
You can.
You can. Is it common practice? I don't know. These are things I need to learn. But so that's one way to go about tracking information from, or tracking traffic.
He did that too, actually. I'm in my second year of doing this, and for the first year, I tracked all the number of clicks through Bitly, and I've recently switched to Google for their shortener, just because it's easier for me. I always forgot my Bitly password. But sadly, like this year, most of my keeping track of my success has been students actually coming in and telling me, hey, I saw your post. Hey, that's actually, like, we had a book sale and I had people coming in and telling me I'm here because of your post. And that's actually kind of been where I've been getting my vindication of posts, is because I've had people coming in and telling me that they saw it, which is completely useless when it comes to metrics, but it's nice to know that people are looking.
mm-hmm.
I would love for that kind of feedback.
I get very giddy when it happens. It doesn't happen very often.
How do people measure the success of their posts?
I look at likes and shares and comments, mostly likes because we don't have a very interactive campus apparently. But so I have monthly stats that I keep track of which posts got the most likes, and kind of try my best to gear more posts to that time or maybe that style of post.
Yeah, we similarly record monthly likes, and I'm not sure anyone's actually shared our content. I'm sure the special collections and archives, their content gets shared, but the stuff coming out of the main library and the branch libraries tends to be liked a lot. Well, tends to be liked. I shouldn't actually say a lot.
We have a staff member who's doing analytics work for our Twitter account this month. We have a big March Book Madness event that's going on this month, so we do a pretty concentrated social media campaign for it, and we were curious what our reach is like and what sort of effect it's having. So for that kind of analysis, we actually had to specify a start and an end date for tracking that data.
Anybody else? We're running short on time. Is there any other things that people want to talk about that we didn't actually kind of address? Do you want to talk a bit about how you've been using Pinterest?
Sure.
Since that came up, a couple people were mentioning that as well.
I'm a perpetual Pinterest user of my own. My account is full of stuff, and I pin all kinds of goofy crap. And then the libraries one, I think we've got something like 25 boards now. Some of them are boards that are actually going to be useful to students. Some study tips and writing tips, research tips, how to not plagiarize, an entire board of just different citation style help, and how to cite social media, which seems to be an upcoming thing. And then I've kind of branched off and done more library stuff. So I go out and find all the library comics and all the pictures of the beautiful libraries. And I have something, I think it's just like library style, the clothes and the jewelry and stuff. And usually it's the library comedy stuff and the clothes that get the most pins from people. But I also get a lot of pins from other libraries because I've started to follow them, and they pin like the "What Are You Reading" books or some of the the research and study stuff. We don't get a lot of popularity from our own students, though. This is going to be, it's mostly from other librarians and other libraries, I think.
Okay. And I think that touches on my questions of why we might want to get into that. I've seen that it's popular with the kids these days, but I haven't been able to recognize the value of how we'd be able to utilize it as a library tool, but reach those students that are using it.
I'm still trying to figure that out. I try every time. I do information literacy is the other part of my job. So when I'm teaching those one-shots, which is usually what I do, I try and kind of point them to the Pinterest things for extra help, maybe before coming to see a librarian or after, either way. I think some of them have actually gone. I'm not sure how many, though. But I'm not really sure how to advertise to students that we have these boards, but it's just full of random tips. And the organization of it is where I'm kind of having issues of figuring out how to build these boards so that they actually make some sense, not just a conglomeration of ideas.
Yeah. Anybody else? Anything? We're all raring to go with our social media campaigns now.
I have some ideas. Thanks, guys.
Good. Well, I want to thank everybody for participating in today's discussion. I hope you all did get some good ideas, have a little better plan to attack your next month. We're chock full of finals right now, so which is when we need to be doing our most social media, but also when we're too busy to actually do any of it. But that's just us. So I want to thank you all for joining us. We'll be sending out a follow-up email to just kind of get a little assessment of how this has been going. I know some of you have participated in the last month, and will be hopefully we'll be participating next month. Next month we'll actually be talking about assessment of outreach and how are people doing assessment of outreach activities. I know that's a hot topic, so I'm sure that we'll all be interested in what other people are doing. And I hope some of you are doing something so everybody's not like, what are you doing? Because we haven't been doing any of it. But we'll see how that goes. So look for that email, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.